What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you something a little different about what I struggle with the most in video games. Now, I 100% a lot of games for reviews, etc., and in doing so, a very common question or questions that I get are, how do I deal with burnout? Do I get burned out? How do I deal with the difficulty of games? And the answer to those questions is rather simple, to be honest with you. Simply put, I love video games. If I get a little tired of something, I'll switch genre, etc. But I love video games. I've been playing them my entire life. I don't really get burned out on them. And when it comes to difficulty, again, been playing games my entire life. Eventually, you start to see patterns, etc. And there comes a point where the difficulty of a game just isn't intimidating anymore and is more about you finding the way around it. But those are not what I struggle with when it comes to video games. No, truth be told, what I struggle with is something a little more ephemeral in nature, and that is the magic behind the concepts. So to me, fundamentally, what a game is supposed to be is a way to take a break from reality, so to speak, and indulge yourself in this story or this world that is hopefully in some way appealing or thought-provoking to you in whatever way that a game can do that for you specifically. And these days, there's so many genres, etc., that as a concept very much so varies from person to person. And what I've found is that over time, through a variety of factors, which we're obviously going to discuss a little bit, that the magic of what a video game is supposed to be just has a way of being very much so diminished. So for me personally, what that boils down to is the act of playing a game and discovering something and just kind of being blown away and immersed in this universe. However, I've found that with the rise of the internet and naturally video game guides, information, anything you need, you can just look up, combined with, honestly, just the way games are made these days, has really led to a decline of that part of gaming for me. Now, I think it's very easy to hear something like that and then as a criticism be like, oh, well, just don't engage in those things. However, that's just not really the way the world works. And as I mentioned, it's also not entirely the way video games work anymore. So while years and years ago, and maybe you can chalk some of this up to nostalgia, you could play a game, you could spend a lot of time discovering and finding things for yourself, and there was really no other way to do it. But obviously, in a very globally connected via the internet world these days, games are figured out often before they even launch. And yes, sure, I could go through a game and never look up anything at all once ever. And in a lot of cases, you simply don't need to. But I think in today's day and age where, frankly, time is a factor, especially if you are an adult with other responsibilities in your life, you really have to weigh the cost of your time versus looking something up. So do I want to chase that feeling or do I want to experience this full game and just look this thing up? Because if I don't look it up, I run the risk of spending an enormous amount of time on something that ultimately culminates in a lackluster experience, which brings me back to how games are made. These days, games are made with that kind of stuff in mind, where everything is either very easily discoverable or the reward, frankly, is just not worth the time investment. Now, one notable exception to this recently, and what has been on my mind as a reason for making this video, was actually Elden Ring. Now, truth be told, I think Elden Ring, like every other game, has kind of been solved. And while I even did a review after 100% for that title as well, there was about a 2-week period, give or take, after Elden Ring launched where everyone was just trying to figure all of it out and discover everything that this game had to offer. And because of the way that game was designed, the act of discovering them was both very rewarding and, frankly, a little challenging to do, which is what allowed that game to have this period of discovery that you don't really see a lot of games have anymore, because oftentimes, the day the game releases, all of those guides, etc. have already been made by people like myself who play these games for a living. So yeah, to summarize, my biggest struggle when it comes to gaming is never the fear of getting burned out on them or struggling with the difficulty, etc. You play games enough, you have enough time, you'll figure that stuff out. The thing I struggle with the most is simply that discovery and feeling of exploration has largely vanished as I've become an adult. And again, you could chalk that up to a few things. Simply the fact that I'm older, I've played more of these games, I know how they work. Simply nostalgia might be playing a factor, sure. And let's be honest, just being an adult comes with responsibilities. And again, you have to weigh the time investment of that discovery and doing all this stuff yourself versus actually getting to experience the thing and just getting it done. Because these days, there's a million games to play and you really got to balance that out. And to my mind, The thing that Elden Ring in particular did the best was that sense of world building and discovery, especially like right after it launched. Because in today's day and age, again with the internet, etc., that is a very hard thing for games to capture. And truth be told, while I don't necessarily always replay them or anything like that, I think the games that do manage to capture that feeling of exploration, discovery, that sort of magic, immersive feeling, whatever you want to call it, are definitely the ones that I always remember the most. But without me rambling on any longer about this, there you guys go, the thing that I actually struggle with when it comes to beating all these games, etc. Let me know your thoughts down below. At the end of the day, though, personally, I'm just grateful that I get to do this for a living. I love video games, and regardless of reality in some cases, I still absolutely love to play them. And I think it's important to remember that that's a blessing in and of itself. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.